Welcome, everyone. We're so happy you're here to join us, and please feel free to have your screen on if you would like to do that. We're going to be starting momentarily. Now, I know Brad is being given the short end of the stick, but that doesn't mean, Brad, you have to hurry. Brad has a lot of wonderful, wonderful information on talking to your legislators. So this is Brad's job at Disability Rights Nebraska, and I'm going to let him tell you more about himself. If you do need to take a break, please feel free to stand up and stretch, but Brad is going to start now. And so Brad, I'm going to turn it over to you. And Brad has, by the way, downloaded all of his slides. Okay, the link to all of his slides in the chat. Okay, so I see Diana said thank you, so I'm sure Diana has already downloaded them for us. Okay, so Brad, I've known Brad for a number of years too, and he's always been very inspirational to me. And I thought, since part of our work right now, and I guess all of us as advocates, is to be advocating with our legislators, I asked Brad to talk to us about that. So Brad, why don't you say a little bit more about yourself and start talking to us?
Great, sure. Well, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. So the title of my slides in my presentation is, and Darcy, don't get mad. Hold on. This is
I'm
intentional.
not mad. I don't get mad, Brad.
No,
Come on.
Engaging your inner Patronus civilis, ideas, considerations, examples, and resources. And the reason why I'm picking on Darcy is that we had a discussion earlier that I need to not use such language that talk like a real individual, and to kind of be more of a plain language, sort of a engagement and atmosphere. And so obviously I did not do that here, but I did that intentionally. I wanted to prove a point. Darcy, thank you for letting me be here today to talk about this stuff. I love talking about advocacy in the legislature and engaging in advocacy in the legislature and the public policy process. This has truly been the highlight of my week. So thank you. And I also want to say that if you're getting the opportunity to work with Darcy, you are in rare air. Darcy's work is fantastic. I never miss an opportunity to come watch her do presentations when she comes to Nebraska. Even if I could only make it for the last half an hour, I am going to stop what I'm doing and march over to wherever they're talking and listen to Darcy speak. You'll have an opportunity here that you should not pass up, and you should use Darcy and gain all the information you can. She is a wealth of resource.
Thank you. They're gonna think that I paid you and John.
No,
Anyway, I want you.
Go ahead.
Hey, I want you to tell them what your job is at Disability Rights Nebraska and how long you've been there doing this job.
Sure, yeah. So that's the next slide. So Patronus civilis is Latin for citizen as an advocate. Now we're using, your citizen lobbyists, if you will. So we'll get to that in a second. So do you know what Darcy wanted to talk about? Did you notice any problem with my title? Would this title be better? Why or why not? So you want to get started in advocacy. Here are some things to think about, some examples, and free stuff for you to use. That seems a lot more direct and a little easier to read than the one I had before that was written in all this academic language with footnotes. And by the way, I used the footnotes there for a reason. We'll get to that later on in my presentation. So I want you to kind of remember, this contrast right here in the beginning for some ideas and comments that will happen later on. Oh, let's see. So there we go. So my name is Brad Murrens. I am the Public Policy Director at Disability Rights Nebraska, and I've been here since 2001, actually December 26th, 2001 to the present day. I started off as a public policy specialist, and then Eric kind of, after a few years, let loose the reins and kind of let me kind of have a more of a managerial and director role in our policy work at Disability Rights Nebraska. We are the designated protection and advocacy organization for persons with disabilities in Nebraska. And so our kind of charge and mandate is just that to protect and advocate for the rights of persons with disabilities. If there's a federal mandate that our organizations exist, and that all 50 states and the territories have a protection and advocacy organization, or as we call them, a P&A. There's a P&A in Nebraska, there's a P&A in Iowa. There's Disability Rights Washington, Disability Rights Texas, Disability Rights Northern Marianas Islands, Disability Rights Guam, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, there's one in Pennsylvania, and here is their website, disabilityrightspa.org. We have a very long history of working on public policy advocacy and public policy work at Disability Rights Nebraska. We focus primarily on the state level, but we do dabble a little bit at the federal level, but we kind of try to stay closer to home and not spread ourselves too thin. We think that we can achieve more direct and shorter term or a more immediate effect here at the state level than at the slow grind of the federal level. But we're involved in keeping an eye on what's going on at both the federal and state. We will lobby on legislation that's either proposed by others and or by us. So we have had bills introduced on our behalf before, and we will take about 10 bills each session that we will lobby on. Those are our high priority bills. Those will get, I will attend the hearing on that bill, because every bill that's introduced in Nebraska, every bill gets a hearing. So I will testify at the hearing on those 10 high priority bills. And then if we need to, do some work behind the scenes, if the bill's not going to go anywhere, maybe we need to focus on the bills that are going somewhere, or there's a chance that this bill might get amended into this bill, or so we will have meetings with senators and do some more education and more lobbying for those bills if we have to, as the session goes on. Here in Nebraska, we are a unicameral system, which means we have one house. So we don't have a House and a Senate. We have a unicameral, we call them senators. There are 49 senators representing 49 different districts throughout Nebraska. They each have limited to 2 4-year terms, and then they then they have to run again. So they do have a limit on their term times, and they will time out, but then they can come back on several years after if they want to run for office again. So we will also do education on disability issues for senators and other policymakers. We'll respond to regulations that we feel we need to respond to. We will provide comments on state plans. We'll provide public comments and attend state meetings, state organizations and state committees, work groups. We will work with state work groups and other committees on a variety of different disability topics. So we're heavily involved in a variety of different things. There are no dull moments. And I wanted to also say that, yes, that lobbying is not a dirty word. Actually, 501c3 organizations can lobby. We just cannot use federal funds for lobbying. And then what we do is that, so all of the lobbying and policy work that we do that we can't spend federal monies for, we will take that out of our unrestricted funds, which is basically kind of like gifts or donations or fundraising, things that are not tied to federal funds.
Mm-hmm.
And we also kind of find that we don't really need a lot. We don't use a lot of those resources because we, don't we are, we don't have to spend a lot of our resources to get our goals met. And we, have been successful in a lot of different areas with just being around and doing the level of lobbying that we do. We don't run into an issue of how we're gonna pay for my hours lobbying on a specific bill. The core of every P&A's work is legal. We have attorneys on staff. They file suit. Disability Rights Nebraska or Iowa has attorneys on staff. They file suit. Minnesota has attorneys on staff. They file suit. So all the P&A's core work is legal, but not all of them have a public policy, legislative advocacy arm to their work, or don't have the level of direct involvement currently or historically that we have. There are some that do, like Disability Rights California and Disability Rights Washington have a very extensive legislative and public policy advocacy program. But we've been here doing this work for a long time. In fact, they had someone doing this work about 9 years before I got here in 2001. So our organization has a long and storied history of working in this area, and we love being there. Oh, I can get my direction. I'm directionally inept. Sorry. So let me give you a little overview. So when I was talking to Darcy, I kind of got the assumption that there is some interest in doing advocacy work, especially kind of at the systems level, like at the state legislature, or even helping people develop confidence to do self-advocacy. And so we were talking about, well, I could kind of talk about, what are some of the ideas and some tips and tricks for individuals or the group to get started with this advocacy work. Like, what is advocacy? What does it look like? And how do we do this? Does that sound appropriately and fair? All right, cool, great. I didn't misread. I didn't read my notes when my penmanship has gone bad over the years. So you never know what I don't even know what I write down sometimes. So I'm gonna try to answer this question in 3 parts. Actually, there's 4, but there's 3 main parts. First, I want to talk about the importance of public policy advocacy, kind of the why. Why are we talking about this? Secondly, I want to talk about the experience of Disability Rights Nebraska, some of the ideas that we have, and some of the things that we would suggest that you want to think about. Not to say you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying there's some things that we have run into over the years that you might want to think about. Just kind of, not like a warning like danger, Will Robinson, or anything like that, but just some things to think about. And I want to also give you some examples of advocacy in action. I want to kind of give you some success stories. And I want to also give you I've got a bunch of resources. If I got a few minutes before the end, I would be glad to kind of walk you through what we have on the Google Drive and some of the resources that I have made for you. So why advocate? Well, I think one answer is look at the significance and the principles that come out of that. For example, the number of people with disabilities in Pennsylvania is 1.87 million, which is about 14.7% of the state population. The number of people without disabilities in Pennsylvania is around 10.9 million, around 85, a little over 85% of the state population. Now that's also a limited number as well, because that number taken by the University of New Hampshire only includes hearing, vision, cognitive, ambulatory, self-care, or independent living disabilities. And they have them defined there. And there, if you click on the blue underline, that link will take you right to their definition of what those are. So so my question is that, there is no category for mental illness. There's no category for traumatic brain injury as a category itself. and we need to rely on whether or not that mental illness might, kind of lean into ambulatory or lean into self-care. So that number itself is a little bit skewed and a little bit underreported. But I think it still gives us a benchmark. So we're not talking about 30 people. We're not talking about a small minority. We're talking about millions of people identified as having one or more disabilities. And that's significant. And I think that leads us to what I want to give you right now are kind of four sort of mantras or four sort of sayings that I think come out of this idea that we're talking about millions of people here, and that disability is a natural part of the human experience. And I think once we can agree on, and once we get agreement with others on the natural part of human experience, we really can see where ableism and disableism and where a lot of the other ideas and concepts come from. And I think it really does expose things and just you see things in a different perspective. Nothing about us without us. That is a critical, that is a fundamental, that is an important priority, prioritize, saying within the community. Nothing about us without us. And I think it's tied back because we're talking about 14, 15% of the population. If you're going to be making decisions about this wide number of people, you should include them. And I don't want to say that it is dependent upon the number of people, that whether or not you should be included or you should be involved in decision making. My point is this: is that we're talking about 14, 15% of the state population. You can't be making decisions for that large of a population with broad brushstrokes, and especially by people that don't have a lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
So people with disabilities are the experts on disability. That's a really critical concept as well. Kind of comes out of that. Nothing about us without us. If you want to talk about disability, you should be talking to those who have a lived experience, because they're the ones that will be more direct and more, can talk about the disability on a more expert level. And finally, disability rights are human rights. Very basic, but again, another key fundamental concept.
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of make sense? If it doesn't make sense, please stop me. I'll be happy to go back over it. Again, I tend to talk fast, and as I get really excited about this topic, I'm going to be going faster and faster. So I'm going to try to put the regulator on a little bit. So if you do miss something, or I didn't go over it, or you missed it, please raise your hand. I'd be happy to go back over it. I'd be better to go back over it than to have you miss it. Fair? All right. Great. Why advocate? Because every issue is a disability issue. The Century Foundation's report, How to Embed a Disability Economic Justice Policy Framework in Domestic Policymaking, and I think it's like this, I think it's January 12th of 2022. There's the link. They say, what is disability policy? Healthcare, benefits, education, housing, long-term supports, the ADA, inclusion. Those are all some key terms that come to mind. With 61 million people, or 1 in 4 people in the U.S. living with disability, every policy is disability policy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and that will come to you'll see a little bit further about that later on in the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So why advocate? Everyone has a role, and we're talking about an information gap. Okay, systems like Medicaid, education system, the justice system. So we're talking about systems. We're talking about these big, these these systems by which we all live our lives, and the rules by which those systems operate, and the rules and regulations and the rights and responsibilities that we have, and how those interact with these systems, right? So, but it usually takes an outside event or advocacy from people like you and me to make systems change. A body at rest tends to stay at rest, something like that, right? A body in motion stays in motion, something like that. And of course, I hated physics when I was in high school. And of course, what do I bring up? I bring up physics metaphors, go figure. But anyway, you get the point. If you want something done, you can't, the system is not going to fix itself very often. And changes that we need to make are often not going to come from the system that, that'd be a good change, I should do that. No, the system's like, this is what we do every day, next day, the next day, we do the same thing, So this is how we do it. So if we want change, we have to create the change. I think there's the overused phrase, be the change you want to see, or something like that. It's true. It takes an outside event or an advocacy from people like us to make systems reform and make them change. Here's an example. For over 20 years, since I started working at Disability Rights Nebraska in 2001, we have noticed that one of the major barriers to work for persons with disabilities in Nebraska is the benefits cliff. And what I mean by that is that if the person goes back to work and they're using Medicaid, if they make too much money, they will lose their Medicaid. They'll become financially ineligible for Medicaid. It's once they go over the poverty level, right? So people with disabilities say, well, I cannot risk my Medicaid because it is the only insurance that will take me, and it's the only one that will meet my needs. For example, rarely will you see coverage of things like personal assistance services under a private healthcare plan or an employer-based healthcare plan, but it is paid for under Medicaid. So for years, we had been harping on this issue with the Medicaid department, and with Senator Jensen and with Senator Byers and Senator Frist, and this is a problem. We need to change this. We need to change this. We need to change this. Oh yeah, sure. Well, if we do this, all the people just come out of the woodwork, and we'll just be swamped with applications, and we'll just be, it'll be a free-for-all handout for a bunch of people. Not at all. But that's what we experienced for years and years. Finally, they said, "All right, fine. Well," I said, "Well, look, can we just get a study? Can we just get some information and see what's the reality here?" So yeah, sure, we'll do it. We'll put some language in a report. Don't worry about it. So of course, it was like 2 paragraphs. My point is this. After 20 years, in 2019, 2020, 21, we finally found a senator, Senator Crawford, from York, Nebraska, or actually from Omaha, excuse me. She sat down and said, "I'll listen to your argument." So I talked to my friends over at Easter Seals, who are benefits planners, and I said, "Oh, hey, you run the numbers for this program. You know how it works. What's the problem?" And they said, "Well, get rid of test A. That's the major stumbling block. I don't want to get into too much detail.
All the details. Yeah, we don't need all
but with this one change, that will really free it up. So we found a senator who would listen. And finally, they introduced the bill, and the system finally changed. They said, "You know what? You're right. We're not going to oppose the we're not going to oppose the idea of expanding the program to make it work more effectively and to make it do what it's supposed to do in the first place." So systems require us to move them. But people with disabilities and their family members have a unique and very powerful role because they are the experts on disability. Because of their lived experience, persons with disabilities and their family members have an insight that others do not, and can bring information to the table that people without disabilities may not know or may not be able to bring. I cannot hold out myself as being a person that's real, and I cannot talk to the communities. I am not that community, and I don't have that identification. So I can't speak to that. So I have to find another way to talk about these issues. But my point here is this: family members and individuals with disabilities themselves have a very powerful role in advocacy at the legislative or the systems level because of their lived experience. So you should not be afraid or ashamed or timid about going up and advocating for yourself or for your community.
Mhm.
One role they have is mutual support. Like I said earlier, I can't speak to having a disability. So I'm left with presenting arguments that are based on like statistics and data, legal arguments, policy arguments that require a bunch of research. But that's only half the picture. The stories and lived experiences of persons with disabilities and their family members are important because it often backs up what my data and what my arguments are saying. And more importantly, it gives a better picture of what's going on and what the real problems are at the ground level. And it becomes real when you're not talking about, well, the research says this and the research says that, and I did all this research. I did all, when you say, oh, this is what happened. I have had it happen to me. I have lived experience. That's a very powerful statement. And senators like to hear stories and hear about human experiences. Their staff will read my statement and my footnotes, but the senator will vibe on your individual stories and your experience. That's what they will take away from the discussion. I guarantee it. I have been in the room where they said, Kathy, I really appreciated your comments today. I learned more, and it made more sense to me than what Brad was talking about. And I'm like, thanks, Senator. So I've had him say it to me. You are the translators. Lived experience allows individuals and their family members to speak on how changes will affect them. For example, if the governor proposes a 10% reduction in funding for IDD services, who do you think can best explain what that cut means at the day-to-day ground level? I can't. Who do you think can explain the importance of day services, for example, or the impact of the waiting list, for example? I can't. You can, or people can. I can't translate what that 10% cut means or the importance of services X, Y, or Z, but you can. You're the translators. You have the key. You have the Google Translate. You are Google Translate. And again, because of the experience, you can talk about things I can't, and explain things in ways I can't. But my point is this: we need each other, because my data backs up your story, and your story backs up my data more often than not. And that's the full picture. When you have the data and its implications and the real world talk and the empirical evidence, not theory, empirical evidence, that's powerful. That makes a good argument.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I want to go a little exercise with you real quick. I call this building a disability lens. So you have 4 pictures here. Do you see anything out of, there's like a parking lot, buttons on an elevator, a door, and another door. Do you see anything out of the ordinary here? Anything that you would say, that looks out of place. Just kind of like normal and ordinary. You wouldn't think a thing about it if you passed them on the street, right? I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay.
Yes, sorry, Brad.
Okay. No, you're all good. You're right. You're good.
You can do reactions, you can raise your hand and stuff, okay?
Yeah, for sure.
And you can speak up. Brad is really friendly that way. All right. So you just
I am
unmute and speak up, okay? All right. So
let me see if I can share. Now I want to share this with you real quick. There we go.
Can I throw a monkey wrench in the whole thing?
Yeah,
I
sure,
can't,
sure, sure.
sure, I can't see your pictures because I'm blind. I just had to do it.
Okay, that is a monkey wrench. Can we go back, Brad, to the one you had before?
I'm sorry, what?
They can't see your pictures.
Oh, you
So
can't
can
see
you
the
go,
picture?
can you go back to the pictures that you had up before, please?
Well, Brad
Sure,
probably
sure,
doesn't
sure.
know, but Suzanne is visually impaired.
I got you. Okay.
So
Okay, so Suzanne, we can describe the pictures for you. I didn't know that either.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay, so sorry, let me go back. So you want me to describe the pictures I had up before, right? Okay.
the four examples, yeah.
Right, gotcha.
I,
Okay.
I,
Sure, no-
I just wanted to throw a monkey wrench into it because I think I know what you're showing, that they all probably have something, but I'm gonna, you know,
Yeah, no, I hear it, and that's totally fine. Like I said, the questions are good, and if you missed something, like I said, stop me and I will go back over it. So there's four photos. The first one is a photo of a gravel parking lot. It's kind of gravel, gravelly. It
we're
leads to-
not seeing those, Brad.
Oh, you're not okay.
Yeah, can you just go back?
There again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just go back and then we can see them, okay? You had them up once.
Yes, I did. Yes, that stopped.
Technology is so great when it works. That's like my favorite sentence.
Okay,
There we
go.
All right.
The first one is your typical gravel parking lot. Small parking lot in front of a small building. I think it's like the Women's Council. There's there's a nonprofit in that small building there. The second picture is a picture of buttons in the elevator for the floors. There's 12 buttons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which each floor on the elevator on the inside. The third picture is a picture of a door with a handle on it, or the handle, brass knob handle, that's actually inside the state capitol. It's a brown door, it's a marble, and it's got but the key is that it has a twist knob. And then the last picture is another door, taken from the law office, on the outside, and it's on a slant. It's the brown door on a slant, and it has a lip. It has a lip, a threshold, right where it kind of meets the sidewalk.
Mhm.
oh, okay.
That was going to be my comment. It looked like the last one has the transom, the door transom is definitely a lip.
Yep, there's a lip there. Yep.
The one at the Capitol building, not only does it have a turn knob, but it looks like a very narrow door, which might make it very difficult to get some chairs through, power chairs, etc. I know we've had trouble at some older buildings getting wheelchairs through some of those doors. The elevator, I can't tell from this picture if there are Braille numbers on there.
I'll bet you there aren't.
There are Braille numbers there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But are there Braille numbers indicating each floor when you get out?
Uh,
Know that.
that I don't know. That
That would be interesting.
That because often places have them now.
Interesting.
Sure.
I didn't even
And
think of that, Suzanne. You open my eyes in so many ways. And the
I-
gravel parking lot, I can tell you from my son currently using a wheelchair, that is truly an adventure. Using having a gravel parking lot makes accessibility, takes it to a whole new level.
Yep. So
Okay, and I
here's
just want to say, I'm sort of unsteady on my feet. I could never manage a gravel parking lot, especially as it's going uphill. And the other thing is, in front of that one door, there was like garbage in front of it. There was
Right.
like a paper and something like, so people could easily stumble on that. All
that's
right,
exactly. So
there we go.
the, on your screen, do you see the, Disability Rights Nebraska, the white square,
Yep.
white square? Okay.
Yep, Disability Rights Nebraska, protection advocacy for voting access.
Yeah, so this is a video that we took around voting access, but I think it really applies equally well here. And I think you'll see it in a second.
Can you make it full screen or no?
Oh yeah, can you hear the sound?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Well, let me see what I can do. That.
There's a little sound button, Brad. I don't know.
So Brad, what you'll likely need to do is you'll need to stop sharing. And then when you go to reshare your screen, there'll be a little button at the bottom that says share sound.
Gotcha. Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. Here we go. All right. Okay. So when we do, I thought I was going to be a lot really cool and show a video and be all like,
It'll be fine. I go through this all the time. There you go.
but I need to push this share sound. Okay, good. Okay, all right, good. Okay, so you see the screen now? Okay. Can you hear the sound? And you see it?
We can hear it. Yep. Some physical barriers.
Uneven terrain. This sidewalk is very chewed up, and as you can see, it's pretty unsafe, and it kind of throws me around quite a bit. It would be way worse in the wintertime with an icy buildup. Really, you could end up sliding into the walls or getting stuck here, again, having to wait for somebody to push you out. Another issue we have found when we're going to polling places is the parking areas. This particular one is completely covered with crushed rock, which is very unforgiving for a person in a wheelchair. It becomes very unsafe, and you tend to get stuck. As you can kind of see, we're starting to get stuck right now. So again, in the heat of the summer, I would have to wait until someone could come push me out, or in the middle of winter, I would be getting freezing while, again, waiting for someone to come rescue me. There's also the elderly population that would have a problem with the crushed rock. It's very uneven, and they might slip, they might fall, especially those who use canes or walkers. It's just very unstable for them as well. So it's not only the disabled population, but the older aged population that would see this as a concern. Okay, upon entering to go to vote, I've discovered an extra new barrier, and that's that the inner door is not opening. So unfortunately, I will have to wait until someone comes along. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 30 minutes. I guess luckily I'm inside. If I were stuck outside with a non-working door, I could freeze in the winter or melt in the summer. The next barrier that we've experienced at many polling places is these kind of doors that are older. They're definitely heavy, and so I'm not able to open them. They're just way beyond what I'm capable of doing. Not only that, but there's a lip on the bottom that would be problematic for me to get my wheelchair over. So ultimately, I would be standing outside again, waiting for someone to come by to open the door, and then hopefully they would be able to stand there while I made my way in case I got stuck. Now, another issue we experience when going to polling places that are in older buildings are doors like this with doorknobs like this. there is no way that I can grab this, unfortunately. So again, I would have to wait or hope that maybe someone's hiding in there that I can't see, because as far as I can see, the lights are off. So I might be waiting quite a while. Another issue I have experienced is elevators like this. The elevators that are kind of, yes, they're accessible, but are they really the kind of elevator that you want to use? Because you're kind of treated, as you can see, like freight. It's kind of a afterthought.
It's kind of back in the back of the bus, Rosa Parks kind of an elevator. From the button that I cannot.
All right. I think you get the point. Let me just so I can get back to where I was. Sure.
Suzanne, do you have any, you want, oh, okay, we're gonna finish it.
No, I don't have any questions. I think I've
Okay.
actually seen the video before
Okay, great.
or
Okay.
heard the video before, so.
Okay, okay, great.
No, everything's cool. And actually, you know, I did understand the idea of the pictures before, but I just wanted to put the monkey wrench in there just for discussion purposes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sure.
So I wanted to, okay, could you see can we back to my power, can you see the slide from theory to practice on
Yep,
the screen? Okay.
Yep.
So I wonder what my main point behind that was, to show you that I don't think I'm showing you anything you don't already know, but there are hidden barriers in what people would normally see and wouldn't think anything about. Why? Because they don't have that lived experience. I'm very fortunate that I've been able to be around people who have mobility impairments or have other disabling conditions or other situations where I can now, after 20 years, I can kind of see and think on my own. I have kind of developed my own disability lens, so I can kind of see ahead of time what might be problems, or I kind of get the ideas or get the concepts a little bit better. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I'm not saying I regress every once in a while or that I know everything. My point is, you know, for a lot of folks that just don't know, they just don't know. That's why your advocacy is so important. So now that we talked about why, again, I don't think I really need to explain why. I want two small little stories. Dr. Avery was a professor of mine at UNL. And I remember one time he was lecturing on, you know, foreign aid. And he said that Pakistan was received the third most U.S. foreign aid, you know, of all the countries in the U.S. or the globe. And so I said, hold on a second. That doesn't assume the Pressler Amendment of 87. And he was like, what? And I was like, well, the Pressler Amendment, you know, banned all foreign military aid to Pakistan in 1990. Well, I didn't know about that. It was my debate case in college, so I was researching it anyway. And I called him out on it, and he said, look, everyone has their niche knowledge. Everyone has something they know a lot about on any topic. And it's okay that you said that, because it was something that we didn't think about, and that you had some new knowledge that unique knowledge that you needed to present to the group. So I want you to, the idea of niche knowledge, of knowledge that you know is unique to you. You have unique knowledge. And I also want to talk about this thing here on the another picture here of cattle gates. There's a road, there's a ditch in the you know that bisects the road, and there's a metal grate that's like a bridge, but it's a grate that spans the ditch. And what that is it's going to call a cattle gate. What is that? Well, it is a gate that cattle will not cross that gate, even if they're on their, you know, because they are afraid to get their hooves caught in the gaps in the grate. So it's a good way to kind of control cattle or control where they go. So I was in a meeting. I got called to a meeting with the senator one time, and it wasn't my meeting. I got asked to be in the meeting. And so we met in the senator's office, and I didn't know the senator very well. So I'm kind of looking around and trying to get, you know, my bearings. And I see, you know, picture of a ranch, picture of cattle, picture of a ranch, farm, cows, more cows, more cows, cowboy hat. And I was like, must be a rancher. So, and they were started talking, and of course, the person I was with was from rural Nebraska. And they started talking about cows and cattle and all, and they said cow gates. And I was just like, I don't get that. And so that explained it to me, like, oh, okay, now so Senator, you must have a ranch. Yeah, you must be a cattleman. Yeah. How many cattle you got in your herd? What kind of cows do you have? My point here is, and I said, well, I'm a city boy. I'm from Omaha. I know nothing about birth, no babies, and I don't know about cows. So my point is this. So you look around and you find a way to break the ice. Oh, I don't know anything about cattle. What do you know about cattle? Oh, you may know cattle, but guess what? I know disability. So we're going to share information. And so that's kind of an easy way to kind of break the ice, is to say, oh, what do you do, Senator? Look around the office, break the ice. What are you going to talk about? So another quick story I've got is that I was once, several years ago, I was trying to get information on the candidates for Senate here in Nebraska. And I called one of the candidates out in Western Nebraska, and he said, well, I'm really glad you called, Brad, because we have a person with disability on our staff, and so does our opponent, and we have never even thought about disability policy. And I was just like, in my head, I was like, you work with this individual, you see them on a daily, if not weekly, or on a recurring basis, and you never thought about how the policies that your boss or your candidate or that you're dealing with would affect those individuals. So instead of jumping down his throat, I saw it as a learning opportunity. It's that their unknowing provides me an opportunity to connect with them and to educate them, because you have information they need. Here's another quote that I want to kind of give you another why. Every issue is a disability issue because every issue impacts disabled people. We should be at the table for and a part of every conversation. That's Emily Ladau. She's a person with disability and an activist. And she talks about why every issue is a disability issue. And so you shouldn't be afraid to speak up on these issues. Why? Because senators are people too. They know what they know, and they don't know what they don't know. It doesn't mean they're dumb or they're ignorant. They just need to be educated. Like, for example, I don't know anything about cattle raising and the price of cattle. I don't know anything about that. But I'm not dumb. I don't think I'm not. I wouldn't use that term. But so teach me, educate me. Same thing with disability. I can educate you. It's not because you're dumb. You just don't know this stuff because you don't have to deal with it, or you're not involved with it directly like I am. I really have not met any senator that wants to burn it all down and watch it burn. They want to make the best decisions that they can, and decisions that will benefit most people. And their decisions are going to be based on the information that they're given, or the information that they are given will help sway or shape their understanding about these issues in the future. They will vote with the side who gives them information by the responses they get from the public. So feed them. Sometimes, you can have the best argument, but you still lose because of politics. It happens, but sometimes it works in your favor too. And the other thing to remember about legislative advocacy is rarely is it a one and done thing. If you don't win the first time, circle back around another year, get more information. You'll find that eventually you'll get where you want to go. A couple of small things real quick. This is not secret knowledge. You already have the skills and the tools to be an effective advocate. You employ these same techniques every day. You just don't label it advocacy or lobbying, or you don't do it often in the area of public policy, right? But it's all about information, analysis, projection, like what's the future going to look like, negotiation, persuasion, but most of all, communication. Whenever you make a decision, you are using advocacy skills. For example, have you ever been responsible for making a decision for a group, like where to go for lunch or dinner, or what kind of food we're going to go for Chinese tonight? Okay. Think for yourself, what steps were involved in making that decision? How did you come to the conclusion and what was the outcome? Here's my point. When you're thinking about going out to dinner or what kind of food you're going to get and all that, you are using the same skills that I use to persuade senators. What's the problem? We're hungry. What's the solution? I want Taco Bell, Burger King, McDonald's, Subway, Ray's Burgers, whatever, Joe Pavota's Smoked Fish House, whatever, right? You're still using the information. Well, they have a poor record of, cleanliness. They've got, I've seen roaches there. You analyze it. Well, this one's more healthy than this one because this one's more expensive than this one. We can get more for our money if we go here than if we go here. All these things are same things that we use to communicate what? A decision. And what? To back it up. It's the same thing, just in a different context. So again, my point here is this. You have nothing to fear but fear itself. You do this. You already know what you're doing. I want you to put a different label on it. Okay? Also, anyone can be an effective advocate. You don't need to have a law degree. I'm not a lawyer. I have a master's in public administration. My degree, my bachelor's is in Latin. Yes, I have a BA in a dead language. And I have a master's in public administration focusing on gender policies and international development. My focus area was developing programs to eradicate female genital mutilation in Africa and Middle East. Right? Okay? You don't need to have a law degree or a PhD or anything special to be an effective advocate. All you need is your lived experience and an opinion. And a willingness to share that opinion and be able to back it up. Decisions will be made. A bill is either going to pass or it's not going to pass. The decision will get made. There's going to be a vote most often, right? Senators need to understand the issue and its costs and benefits as fully as they can to make the best decision that they can. Because remember, they want to make the best decision, but their decision will be based upon what they're told and what they know and what they don't know, right? Senators want to understand the issue before they're voting on the issue. They want information from a variety of sources, and they want to hear from people in their districts. They want your advice. Now, how often does someone ask you for your advice and really want it? And when you find that person, what do? You give it to them. There's nothing scary about this at all. Lived experience is often the best evidence. It trumps, sorry for the phrase. Senators are extremely busy and they gain a lot of perspective and understanding individual stories. At least they get it a lot quicker than my footnotes and my research paper testimony. There is also safety in lived experience. They can't say you're wrong. I run that risk of that I didn't read the last article that blows my argument out of the water. I'm liable for them saying, no, you're wrong. The study says this, or this study invalidates your argument. I run the risk of being wrong. And I fear that being wrong, right? And it tears me up when I am wrong, but anyway, but they can't say your lived experience is wrong because you lived it. Right?
Yeah.
And it's always good to say, you know, Senator, that's a good question. I don't know. I'll ask around and get back to you. Perhaps this is the one time you can say, I don't know. It's okay. Don't make stuff up. You have to prove. You need to be able to back it up. I used to get teased at the Capitol because I would bring in, hundreds, we'd bring in like stacks of paper and articles for all the senators to read. Because I'm like, and it was stacks, like, an inch and a half thick. And Senator Chris would always tease me about, I'm bringing in the whole Amazon rainforest in printouts for them. But my point was this: you can't say I made it up and you can't say that I'm not right, because the research backs me up. I'm not making this stuff up. It's the truth. Because once you lose your credibility, it's gone, and it's hard to get it back. Again, just like you operate, right? You get a reputation. People talk, and how involved you are and are asked is kind of relative to what is reputation and your credibility, right? Just like your own standards applying to friends, spouses, kids, or or other relationships. My mom always said, I can handle some things, but I will not stand for a liar. If I can't trust you, you're done. They can't tell you. Go ahead.
Brad, we have a question in the
Yeah,
chat.
sure.
You want me to wait to take it, and you do it at the end?
Well, I'll tell you what, let me get this one here done, then we'll take the question. How's that?
Okay, that's good.
And then secret number 4, it's all about relationships. For example, think of a person that you trust without question. Why do you trust them without question? Why do you trust them? Who's the person you would go to for a restaurant suggestion? Why would you go to them and why would you believe them? Because one word, relationship. You know them, they know you. The person that I trust, my brother's back. I know he has my back. I trust him, and implicitly, I will, and vice versa. Because we go back 46 years. We were roommates in college. He's my brother. My mom and dad always said, you better figure out a way to get along, because he's the only one you're ever going to get. So you better figure out how you two are going to get along. It's about relationships. Who do I go for restaurant suggestion? If I was coming to Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, hey, Darcy, where's a good place to get a cheesesteak in Philly? Do they really use the Cheese Whiz, or is that just kind of like a myth, or is it appropriate to get like white cheddar cheese, or I get laughed at and thrown batteries at? Because I know Darcy, I know her, known for 20 some years, and I have faith that she won't lead me wrong, and I trust her ability to tell me what a good place to eat is. I trust her judgment, right? So just like you, policymakers want information from credible sources and sources that are close to the topic. That's where your lived experience makes a strong impact and is the one thing you have that nobody else does. I don't anyway, right? You want to be seen as a resource and a potential help to the senator, not a whine or a political hack. Like you want them to think of, well, and I've had this happen where the senator will call me and say, hey, Senator Lopicott said, hey, Brad, I noticed that you have been talking on the last couple of bills about service animals. Can you come down to my office sometime this week and tell me about service animals? What do I need to know? What are the issues? What do I need to know? Why? Because I'm seen as a resource. And I said, well, let me talk to my friend. Let me bring my friend Roxanne. She's an actual service animal user. Let me bring her too. Right? Leave your contact information, because when something comes up with disability issue later, they may call you and say, hey, I really like your, you seem like a straight shooter. What do you think about this? Or I have a constituent that got this issue. What do I tell them? If they know who you are, they'll call. You might get the phone call. Darcy, yeah, question.
Okay, so we do have a question. I just want to say, Brad, we only have the cart with us until 3:15.
Sure. Okay. Not a problem.
So I don't want you to try to do this in a couple of minutes, and I'm just not sure.
No problem.
What we can do, because I also want you to talk about, but you don't have handouts for the part about the interns, right?
I do. They're on the Google Drive.
They're on the Google Drive, but you don't have a slide. You have pictures, right?
Yeah, I've got some pictures on the slides.
I just want you to talk about how you do that. So when you do that, I guess, we apologize for this. We're just a little behind time because these two men have so much to share with us and have done so much really good work that's relevant. And we've only signed up for the services for a particular period of time. But I think, Brad, your information is really helpful. So I'm just wondering if it's okay, if we continue on. And particularly, the people who are with vision, but I do just want to be clear, we apologize because we only arranged for the translation services until 3:15.
Sure,
Okay,
no problem. I can talk with the interns and the actual examples here in a few minutes, no problem. And besides, the other stuff is you can read it. It's telling you what resources are out
resources.
there,
Okay,
and
okay,
I give you some places to start looking
okay,
at who you can talk to, and some places to start looking at your networking.
okay.
So here's
Um, So
go
did
ahead.
you went through your 4 points there, and
Yeah.
we've got the slides on that because
Yep.
they were really helpful, I think, for all of us to remember. Would just like to ask you this question in the chat before you start to the other part. This is the question: do you have to go through a lobby group to get a policy topic raised to generate a bill or policy change?
No.
No.
At least not in Nebraska, and I don't think it will be any different in Pennsylvania. But you do have, like in Nebraska, you have to have, senators are the only ones that can introduce bills.
Mhm.
So you have to go through a senator to get the bill introduced. Regulatory change, you've got to talk to the either senators who can put pressure on or can call for or work with the division heads in your HHS or Division of Behavioral Health. But no, yeah, I mean, in our system, anybody can bring a bill. I've had 4 or 5 of them brought on our behalf, and I'm like, hey, I got an idea. Did you notice that the statute, doesn't have the word disability here? But it shouldn't. So we put the word disability here. Yeah, thank you. And then that was introduced. So yeah.
Okay, and do you need a group to raise it, or can one person raise it, Brad?
I've seen it done both ways. I have seen where I brought in the issue of the Medicaid buy-in. I talked to a friend of mine. I said, well, let's talk to the senator and get this done. I've seen it. People who one person talked to their senator and said, hey, here's my problem. I got an issue with access to my mom's birth records. But I can't switch. I don't know if I have a genetic predisposition to this cancer or that cancer. I need to get those open. So sat down with Senator Landis. They wrote a bill, introduced it. One person testified in support, got passed. So I've seen it done both ways. In fact, this bill right here, 343, was started by the Youth Leadership Council and a woman named Haley Wagner. So it can be done both ways. So this bill, legislative bill, that's what LB stands for, Legislative Bill 343 in 2013 would remove the words mental retardation and all of its derivatives out of state statute. A young lady named Lynn Redding came to one of my presentations on advocacy. She listened to what we had to say. She came up to me after the training. She's like, I want to do this advocacy thing. What do I do? And I was like, well, your lived experience is really important. I said, oh, by the way, there is a bill going on in the hopper this year to get rid of mental retardation and all this derivatives. And she's like, she lit up. And said, that's what I want to do. And I said, okay. And she said, because I've been called that. That's happened to me by my classmates, by my high school classmates, by my elementary school classmates, by my boss at McDonald's, all that. She's like, that's important to me. That would work on that. Like, okay. Well, so what I did was I said, all right, we'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. You tell me your story and I'll help put it together in the proper format and make sure that all your arguments kind of line up and they flow and they're consistent and that your actions meet the harm. And I'll help you put your statement together to tell your story. And so we did. And so she testified in support of the bill and knocked it out of the park. And she, what you see here, here is on the left is the signing ceremony. So the bill passed, and for certain bills, the governor will have a signing ceremony where they'll have a speech, or the senator introduced it, and the governor will sign several copies, and people who are invited to be there can get a copy of the signed bill. So this is I have been working here since 2001. I have never been to a signing ceremony. However, in 2013, I was Lynn Redding's guest at this signing ceremony.
Yeah, that's so great.
Yeah. And so she made a statement. She met all the senators. The senators just, I mean, she had them all in the palm of her hand. They loved when they knew her by name. They would see her, they would hug her, they would say, what's going on? They would ask her opinion, because she stood up, told her story, and showed that her disabilities did not mean she was incompetent, and that she had a point and had a story to tell that had an impact on the bill. Senator Koash here in the middle, you got Lynn with Senator Koash on the right, and Senator Hadley on stayed on my left. Hadley has the white hair, Koash has the brown hair. Koash was the senator that introduced the bill. Senator Hadley was a co-signer. So she was invited to the ceremony. On the far left, the big picture is a picture of Lynn with her signed copy of the bill by Dave Heineman, signed right here. I don't have one of these. I've never been to one of those, except as her guest.
Yeah.
Lynn was amazing. And all because she said, I want to try it out. What is this thing? And she loved it. She loved it. She got really into it. She would come out of Lincoln and go and meet senators on her own. I got to the point where I would call her for information, like, hey, did you talk to Senator Smith today? What did they say about LB? Oh, wow, okay, great.
Oh, okay, Brad, we need to move on, because I know you have, it's 3:20, so, okay.
Yeah, and then another issue, another example is that we had Brooke Anderson and Sophia Kazmierski. Brooke is in the white shirt. Sophia is in the purple dress. They are our two policy interns for 2022. I'm going to get a late start, but they were interested in emergency management. And so we had developed a relationship with the Emergency Management Association here in Nebraska. So I thought, and Sophia was good with pictures and art, not so good with words. Brooke was great with words and not so good at art. So I said, all right, well, both your strengths, let's utilize them. And said, so let's put together a PowerPoint slideshow about why is inclusivity important in emergency management. Why should emergency managers have inclusive emergency planning? And so we did tons of research, put together a 15-slide PowerPoint. Then I called my contacts over at NEMA, the Emergency Management Agency. Director Portis is on the far right in the black sport coat. And I said, can we present this information to you and your staff? Sure, you bet. So we set up a meeting where Sophia and Brooke presented their information and their presentation to the director of the Emergency Management Agency and his two staff members who are responsible for community outreach and planning. And then after Sophia and Brooke were done, the NEMA staff was so they added another half an hour of questions after the presentation. So we're really happy that turned out really well. And we're continuing to make connections with the emergency management folks here in Nebraska. So with the internship, our idea is that we want them to have coffee, not get coffee. I want the interns to have an interesting and unique experience and learn something and to produce something in the policy world, whether that be a position statement on a bill or a policy issue like emergency management, and then try to get some information and raise awareness with folks they wouldn't normally see on a daily basis because they don't run in those circles as well. So that's kind of what we did, on the legislative side and on the policy, advocacy side. So that's kind of what we do. Go ahead.
Brad, okay, so this is another testimony. I was just gonna say with your interns, you talk to me a lot about how when they come in, you talk to them about what their interest is, right?
Mhm.
And then you help them to do just what you described to us,
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah, I kind of say, here's our list of 10 high priority bills. Are there any in this that you really kind of are interested in, that really kind of jive with you? Or I'll say, well, like with Jenny, for example, here, I said, there are 2 bills left. I said, this would be a good bill for you because it's talking about housing,
Mhm.
as opposed to the other one which is a technical fix on some waiver, but yeah, so we'll find what are they interested in, or is there a particular issue that, is, right front and center that we really could, grab onto. But again, we
Okay.
want to analyze policy and then, get them some experience developing this, research and developing their own position statement and then being able to back it up.
So this on the right-hand side, you have preparation. So
Yeah,
you,
so what I, yeah,
yeah.
so when I talked to Jenny, I said, here's this bill, LB 424, it would create a state department of housing and urban development, which would be responsible for housing policy for all Nebraskans. And so my preparation for her was this. I said, what question is the bill asking you? And she kind of gave me a confused look. And I said, all right, the bill's about housing policy for all Nebraskans. Would that include persons with disabilities? Yes. Okay. So question, do you think housing policy for all Nebraskans would affect or impact people with disabilities? Yes. Do you think people with disabilities might have a perspective or input on housing policy for all Nebraskans? Jenny said, yes. I said, well, if you answer those questions, there's your testimony. I said, you don't have to answer all the questions. You don't have to address every section little of the bill. You only go in there and talk about the part of the bill that you want to talk about, or And my point is, all you need to do is to show to them why the disability perspective needs to be included in the discussion about housing policy for all Nebraskans.
Mhm.
It's
And
like, I just like, and I said, and use your story, use your story with your brother to answer those questions. I said, if you answer the answers to those questions, there's your testimony. Just put, and then you're done. And she did
then,
that Friday, and then Monday she came and knocked out of the park.
okay, and then Brad, when you're going to visit, like, are there any pointers, like one of the things that you can give, like when you're actually talking to the legislator, like one of the things that I was thinking is reading their body language would be like a skill, and if they have heard what you said and they're positive about it, to thank them and not keep talking to them, or I don't know, is there anything that you want to pass on to us? And I see there's a YouTube. We can watch that on our own, Brad, if that's okay, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah, sure, yeah. That's just there's a group that records all the hearings and proceedings of the unicameral, and those on YouTube. This link here is a video of the actual hearing on this bill. And the senator is the first one to introduce it, and then it goes, then I testify, then Kristen Larson from the DD Council testifies, and then Jenny testifies. So if you want to see what a hearing looks like, and you want to see an individual who's not a paid lobbyist provide testimony, and you want to hear what she's, then I would suggest watch that and watch the first 15 minutes.
okay. That would be a good thing for us all to do together.
I think one of the other things that people kind of they get real tense about, oh, it's this intense, it's not intense. And I'm thinking that once you kind of see what it looks like and you see people do it, it might that might demystify it a little bit and to show you that it's not as scary as it looks. In fact, if you click on the blog for her, a narrative of her experience, she says she was biting her nails, or was in the car in the parking lot at the Capitol the morning of the hearing. She's like, I don't know if I want to go in. She's like, but Brad said, just answer what you know.
Right. That's so
She went
great.
in, and so it's not, it's, so I just kind of wanted to give you that to show you what my testimony looks like, what it looks like when Jenny did hers, and to show you that it's not, you're not on the witness stand. There's no Perry Mason moment. Okay. The other thing I really want you to understand is that senators will more than likely not bite your head off. I have all 10 of my fingers, and I have all 10 of my toes, and I've been here for 20 years, right? They're not going to yell at you. They want your information. They want you to come back. They won't yell at you. If you don't yell at them, they're not going to yell at you. In fact, they will treat you with more likely kid gloves, and they'll treat you probably even a little bit more kinder than they would me, because I get paid to do this and I get paid to be out of position. So it's not scary. Tell them what you know. If you don't know the answer, say you don't know, but say you'll look it up, you'll get back to them. You show them that you can be a resource for them, or that in future years when there's questions about disability issues. Disability issues are every issue is a disability issue. What is the perspective? The bill is about housing. How does it affect persons with disabilities? Why would this perspective be important? What does the bill need to be? How does the bill need to be informed from the disability perspective? Are there people with disabilities on the task force? Are there people with disabilities who are providing, consultative services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And if you really look at those principles, nothing about us out of, they're the people with experts. Those I think will help also guide you. Look at the Google Drive. There's a whole bunch of other stuff there that you might find useful. If you have any questions, I got an email. I'd be happy to talk to you whenever you got questions.
Okay, Brad, thank you so much for taking the time to really help us to understand what it takes to really engage with the legislature. That was really helpful, and we really appreciate all the true examples. And then there are success stories that I guess that we can look at, and thank you for that. That blog, and we might get in touch with you, Brad, at times from time to time, right, Diana? Diana just wrote in the chat, thank you, Brad, you're amazing, and she's one of our directors, so we just really appreciate you, and do's and don'ts when you're contacting your state senators. You already had that in there, Brad.
Yep.
So thank you, and we really appreciate you doing this for us, Brad, and we'll stay in touch with you as we work on our advocacy project here. And I would just really like to thank you, Courtney, for staying with us. And what about the evaluation form?
Yes, so we will be sending out the slides to everybody. That'll be coming out later today or early tomorrow, I would expect. But if you want to go ahead and do that now, you already received the link in the email you got today, or that link is right here in the chat. It's just some information to help our funding to make sure that we can keep providing different workshop and services for everybody at no cost.
Okay, and the evaluation form that comes out, you're going to be sending that to us, Brad?
Yeah, it's a link in the chat right now, and they already received it in their email, and they'll receive it again once they get the slides.
Okay, great. So thank you all, for staying. It was really nice to see you all here, and I hope that you got a lot of information. And Brad has kindly given us his contact information, so I'm sure if we get stuck or something, Brad, we could ask you, right? And you'll help us. So
My pleasure, my treat.
thank you so much, Brad. We really appreciate you.
It was really enjoyable. Thank you. You and John both. It was great.